Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're joining us from around the world. Welcome to Web3 Warriors, episode 122, featuring Ram Kumar, the core contributor with OpenLedger, which is a platform that's building itself as the next-gen blockchain network for AI. Welcome, Ram. Thanks for joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm keeping busy, plugging away in this Web3 blockchain space. Never a dull moment. Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. My name is David Karoma. I'm the host of Web3 Warriors, go by Chrome in the metaverse. And today we're going to be looking at the topic that we've been looking at a little bit this year, the marriage between AI and blockchain. And, in the past, in June, we talked to Jan Liphart from OpenMind, where we talked about really the case for cryptocurrency and blockchain in the robotics space. And we really focused on kind of how crypto can provide almost like a financial layer for robots where they can exchange value and do things in a very kind of transparent and accountable way that still makes it possible for them to kind of engage with economics and finance, which is very interesting and fascinating. And then we also looked at the identification layer and how when it comes to sensitive ID related data, you can actually use the blockchain to make sure that there's a certain level of transparency and accountability about how that sensitive data is being used and being stored. So we learned a lot from that conversation, and we kind of want to dovetail off of that conversation and look at kind of the broader marriage between blockchain and AI, which OpenLedger, which you can find out more about at their website at openledger.xyz, they really seem to be focused on kind of the programming side of things and data usage, and specifically how blockchain is going to be helping with kind of the monetizing of these data sets and the models and the agents. And so we're going to dive into that with Ram today. Really excited about this opportunity because it's, I think, a learning experience for everyone. I think a lot of people like myself who kind of jumped into blockchain with a lot of focus on the digital world, the metaverse, NFTs, making it possible for artists and creators to kind of monetize their art in a new and exciting way, connecting peer-to-peer with collectors and supporters from all over the world, and just making it really easy to kind of tap into the crypto economy and actually find value in the crypto space outside of your kind of standard trading and DeFi, which also, of course, has value. So that's where we come to this conversation from, and I think the artificial intelligence space is continuing to evolve and grow in really exciting and really kind of innovative ways. So with that, we're going to dive into this conversation and learn a bit more about it from Ram. So thank you for joining, Ram. Maybe before we really jump into the OpenLedger platform and everything you're building, can you share a little bit about your background and kind of what brought you to blockchain, crypto, Web3, and then we'll dive into OpenLedger. Thanks for joining.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for having me here. This is Ram. I'm one of the core contributors at OpenLedger. So we are an AI blockchain network, right? What we enable is basically to have users monetize their data and monetize the models that are being built on top of us. And we are the first guys to bring in data attribution. Our focus is to make sure that models are transparent and everyone who's being part of contributing to an AI model gets rewarded for that. My background was specifically was, I think, what, 8 years since I'm in this industry. Started back in 2017 when it is all ICOs and everyone is exploring around launching their own token. That's when the ERC20 standard itself was launched, right? So we probably are one of the first few folks to mint an ERC20 token. So built like an R&D firm focused towards blockchain services and machine learning services as well, and got to work with a lot of enterprises. I would say we worked with Viacom, Walmart, Cadbury's, Pepsi, GSK, and any other firm that wanted to get into Web3 during that time between the period of 2017 to 2022. Pretty much we would have tapped them in, right? We would have worked with them. And what we kind of understood is that we built a large enterprise division, and we work with pretty much, as I told you, all these firms, and we built like a 200 employee team and all that. But it is not a product, right? It is not something that is scalable for the end consumer. And we always wanted to solve that. And we were seeing what's happening with ChatGPT movement and how this was a generic model and it needed something much more specialized. We understood that if AI is going to be used in real world use cases, which it will be, you need models which are fine-tuned for that, which are built for that, right? So that led us to go ahead and explore this space much more deeper. We started working with various players in the space, got to understood what they really require, and then we decided, why don't we build a product that's going to connect the data contributors and model developers and build a trustless layer where anyone can come forward, contribute resources, and get paid for it, right? That's OpenLedger. And then we started building this over the last 2 years. We've OpenEdge is backed by Polychain, Borderless, and many other folks as well in the space.
Mm-hmm.
We raised about $15 million to now.
Well,
We are in test.
congratulations.
Thanks, thank you. And then we're going to testnet right now. I mean, we've just finished our testnet right now,
Mm.
and going mainnet soon. So we have 20 different projects building on us. We work with a lot of enterprises again, which we will announce about it soon. We just announced our recent onboarding of a client, which is Trust Wallet, which is one of the famous Web3 wallet out there. We're building a model with them, and very similarly, we'll work with other players in the industry as well, which will be announced as we launch. So yeah, so that's sort of like the quick background about myself and what we do at OpenLedger as well.
Wow, thank you. That's amazing. 8 years in the space is pretty good. That's definitely like a lifetime in crypto, you know.
It is. It is.
Yeah,
I've seen two bull markets, two bear markets, and probably, hopefully, it's a bull market that we're getting into.
it
So
looks like we might be
yeah.
halfway through or just getting started. I don't know. It depends who you talk to, but yeah, it's gonna be
Yeah.
it's gonna be interesting to see where things go from here. And definitely the market's changed a bit from the IPO times and then the NFT times, and now we've got the kind of AI/meme coin kind of hype going on. So you mentioned True Wallet or Trust Wallet, sorry, and then you're saying I know your website shows a few others. You even got the CTO of former CTO of Coinbase connected to you. You got sandbox builders. So I'm just curious, like something like a Trust Wallet comes to OpenLedger to kind of incorporate AI in a innovative and I guess accountable way, but also a profitable way, like you say, monetizing, right? So what's kind of the real value that, you know, OpenLedger is bringing to someone like a Trust Wallet, like an entity like that?
Yeah. So, for example, I'll just talk about two parts to OpenLedger, right? The core is data attribution. Using data attribution, users, anyone who's looking to build a model, can collect data from users across the globe and build an AI model, and use attribution to figure out which data is causing the biggest impact, right? And use that to reward the data contributors. That's on the consumer side. Anyone who's going to build an AI model, a developer, they need data. They can use our product to collect the data and then reward. On the other side, if you're going to work with enterprises also need a solution to explain their models better, right? So for someone like Trust Wallet, they have their own data set. They don't need to collect data set, right?
Right.
They can go ahead and use the data set they have and train an AI model. But if something goes wrong, if it's guiding a user wrong, and it led to a transaction that was not supposed to happen, or it led to something that is not supposed to be exposed to, then there is a poisonous data which is causing that, right? There was a poisonous data that was trained to the model that caused that wrong action to happen. So with OpenLedger, what you can do is that you can attribute back and see what, like basically see what data set caused that, right? You can see that entire provenance. The model is much more auditable. The model is much more open. So that's why we work with enterprise, right? Enterprises need that openness. So we use attribution to figure out which data is going wrong here, how the model works. We figure out like what really went wrong, and then we provide them with the provenance. Okay, this particular data set was trained to the model, caused this inference, which was a mistake, right? It was a bad inference. So that is what we work with enterprises for. Someone like Trust Wallet, they need the transparency, they need that capability, and we work with various other enterprises for a very similar use case as well.
Awesome.
So for end users, developers, data attribution is used to collect data and reward, and enterprises, data attribution is used to explain the models better, make the models much more open, and make them better and available to train and reward as well.
Would you say the enterprise solution is almost more of a like security layer as opposed to with the kind of maybe the more consumer customer level use case would be actually adopting the data for monetizing the data? Or are you able to monetize kind of both at the enterprise level and then even just your average developer trying to use your system for data collection and monetizing the data? Are they two different offers, or are they still kind of essentially the same?
So for the end consumer or like sort of the developer, it's sort of like a marketplace where you can get access to data, and then you can use our protocol as a trustless layer to reward. For an enterprise, it's more of a auditable layer, right? And like an open network on which models are much more transparent. I think that's important, right? There are 100 other fine-tuning companies that you can find across the globe. You can use any tool out there to fine-tune AI models. But the important part here is attribution, right? If you're able to showcase how data is interpreted within a model, that's key for enterprises. And so we provide the trustless layer so that they can keep these models open and they can know how data is being used within the model.
Nice. Transparency and data usage are big kind of values that I think blockchain kind of brings to it. So do you think that, like, in this conversation, right, we look at a lot of the big players like OpenAI, X, Grok, even Meta, and all of them are kind of using data sets in a very, I would say, almost like, I don't know what the word is, I don't want to be too harsh, but it's like not necessarily that everyone is aware of how their data is being used, right? And a lot of people use these platforms for entertainment, for whatever, they're sharing stuff about their family, this, that, and everything. And all of that data is being kind of collected now and used into this kind of AI brain, right? And so there's questions around the ethical use of that data and where we're going from here. Do you think that kind of use case, the social media data usage use case, is ultimately too far gone to really kind of pull back, and it's going to be one way that AI evolves, and then running parallel to kind of what you're doing with a more transparent and accountable data set and being able to actually monetize the data set? How do you see those two kind of tracks evolving, and do you think that at some point people are going to demand a type of kind of data sovereignty that comes with being on the blockchain and using these kind of transparent models? Or do you think that, the Groks and the Metas and the OpenAIs are really kind of too far gone and obviously very lucrative and very wealthy that, there's no real catching up to that model? I'm just curious because as an outsider, I have concerns, obviously, about kind of the way that the social media platforms use the data. And my hope is that, blockchain and crypto and all of this new kind of opportunity will ultimately be the preferred model and that people will kind of move away from the social media data use case, right? I'm just wondering how you see that evolving, and do you think it's possible that we actually can kind of pull back Pandora's box a little bit and recreate, how data is used and how AI evolves from here? Is that part of the hope, or is it really, a separate matter?
Yeah, so I think there are two parts to this, right? I think most of the larger language models that you see today, So I think there are two parts to this, right? Most of the larger language models today, as you told, is trained on internet data. I don't think that's going to change because most of the internet data has been consumed already, right? Most of the data that's there on the internet has been already consumed. Models are built. They act sort of like a base layer. I don't think we can do anything about it because internet is probably the best place where you can get large amount of data at free of cost, and you have a varied amount of data, right? So that's very important to train a model to have a very wide knowledge, just to have a knowledge about the world. So you can't do anything about it. I think it's done. We've all feeded our data sets to that. We've all feeded our knowledge to that. I spoke about this and some other places as well, where I think the overall value of let's just take like an internet to be around like $1 trillion, right? Just the data on the internet. I mean, let's say $10 trillion, right? And if you just take like 0.5% of that was actually used by model developers, and it was actually data that was given by humans on social media and various other platforms, then we've essentially given up $500 billion worth of data set to larger firms out there to train their AI models, and we can't do anything about it. We are not getting paid for it. So I think the only way we could think about monetizing our own data is to figure out how we can monetize our proprietary data that we own ourselves, like the skill that we have. Monetizing that is very important. Very similarly, how we monetize our content creation and created, let's say, videos on YouTube or wrote blogs, which is basically a skill which a human has, right? And he's writing about it, he's talking about it, and then he gets paid as views or as like users that access his platform, right? Very similarly, for an AI model, you need to make sure that you can basically contribute data to that model as a skilled person. Let's say someone is building a model for Solidity, which is a very unique programming language. You don't find much of the data on the internet. It's usually among developers. It's among people who are in the Web3 space, users and developers who know the space really well. They have a knowledge about Solidity. So then you can basically tap into that. You can basically expose that knowledge to someone who's building a model for Solidity, and you get paid for that, and you get rewarded and paid for that.
Mm.
So I think that's how we would be able to monetize the data that we own, the data that was there on the internet, guarding that. I don't know if it makes sense. Maybe
Mm.
for enterprises where they guard their websites using, I think like recently, Cloudflare partnered with a couple of larger enterprises and they started blocking scraping, which is fine. But people will
Yeah.
figure out ways to scrape more as well. But I think that's a very small place to play for. The larger place is the proprietary data set.
Right.
Data set that's owned by skilled people, data set that's owned by enterprises on their, on their knowledge. So I think that is very much needed by AI models, and now is the time to monetize that. There
Mm.
was 2 years back, there was a huge need for compute because models were getting built. We've achieved a point where models have matured. It'll get improvised slightly a bit as years go, but the need for data is there now. People have run out of data. People have run out of data that can be used to train models that are solving unique use cases. And that data is among people. The data is among you and me. It's among companies. So it's now the time for us to figure out ways to tap into the data, figure out ways to monetize data, and that's what we build as well. We want to make sure that we have a trustless layer where anyone can come and contribute the data, knowing that they own that data, knowing that they're going to get paid for it.
Right, right. That's pretty amazing. And so on the input side, essentially, you have the ability to take this proprietary skills based data that hasn't already been scraped or provided to the internet in some other fashion, or at least it's uniquely you, right? It might be there, in some other way or form, but this specific type of data set that you're now uploading into the open circle or the open ledger community or database, I guess. How do you track? I mean, I guess obviously it's all on chain. How are you tracking kind of that data, those data sets, and then monetizing it back? Is it just a matter
Oh,
of, the companies that build with you on the data side that are inputting data are then
mhm.
also having like a crypto wallet attached to that data? And it's just an automated thing like through smart contracts where such data hits a certain level, it's been used for this, AI platform, whatever the case might be, and now you're being paid X amount based on the use case. Like, is it all just smart contract, really automated, or is there a certain
Yeah.
level of still kind of contractual, old school agreements that are are in place?
So, what really happens here, right? When someone contributes the data is still off-chain, but the ownership of the data is stored on-chain. So, let's say Adam goes ahead and contributes a data set. That particular data point and data set is tagged to Adam. And then as the data goes into a model, which data sets go into model is also tracked on-chain. The
Gotcha.
provenance is maintained on-chain. And when the model goes out and gets built, it's fine-tuned now with all the data set that is collected. And when the model is used by users or apps by putting up APIs and stuff, on every model's output, that inference, we figure out which data is causing that inference, and which data has the biggest impact on that output that was given by the model. Let's say you ask a question to ChatGPT, right? Hey, what's the weather in New York or something like that.
Mm.
And then it actually gives you an answer. That's called inference, right? You're asking a question, it understands that, it's looking at a data set and then giving you an answer. So on that answer, we figure out which data that was trained to the model gave the impact on that data set. It made sure that that answer came. We figure that out, which is again an off-chain attribution. We do that calculation off-chain, but then the record is moved on-chain, right? Which data caused that inference, and how that was, having the impact, and the impact of that is moved on-chain. So now we know the data set that is on chain, which data got into a model that's also on chain,
Mm.
and we know how much this data cost impact on the inference that is also on chain. And so now we have this track of the data set that went into the model and how much impact it had on the model's output.
Hmm.
All of this is on chain, and then we use crypto to reward um, based on the track that is there, based on the impact that is there. The
Mm.
revenue that the model gets paid for is then split and rewarded accordingly. So all of this happens on chain as well. The reward and all that happens on chain. So I think it's very important that decentralization or verifiability is brought in when it's necessary, when you need provenance, when you need to check, when you need to verify something. I think that's where decentralization and verifiability is quite important, not every other place. That's why we, wherever there is huge compute, there's a need for like compute, we keep that off chain.
Makes sense.
And
Yeah.
then wherever there is trustlessness needed, wherever you need to make sure that people can track and see what really happens, all of that is on chain. So
Okay. So it's more
essentially
sensitive.
that's what happens.
Yeah. More power kind of demand obviously is going to require heavier usage that you don't really want to do on chain because it's not really feasible. If it's even
Yeah.
technically possible, it'll be a little bit expensive usually.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's those limitations. I noticed on the website you do mention that there is EVM compatibility.
Yeah.
Obviously, you know, I'm a big fan of Ethereum. Got a lot of NFTs on that blockchain. Also, just as a Canadian innovation, you know, I'm a big supporter of Ethereum, and they seem to have the largest community of developers. So I'm just curious, when you look at kind of Ethereum and the EVM and its place in this kind of ecosystem, obviously, you know, you mention it as one of the highlights of what you offer at OpenLedger being EVM compatible. Can you speak to kind of how important that is and where you think Ethereum as a kind of network, as a kind of base layer of programmable blockchain, where they fit into this kind of AI conversation, and how
Yeah.
you're specifically using them at OpenLedger?
Yeah, so we built as an OP stack. So it's a layer 2 on Ethereum.
Okay.
Ethereum is where the major liquidity is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where the major of developers are there as well. So we want to make sure that, and we've been like ETH maxis for a very long time, right? So I've been
Nice.
in the space for a long time. So building on ETH is probably the best place to be because you have exposure to the developer community and also the community that is there generally in the space. And for us, for a use case where we need as much as exposure to anyone who's in crypto or not in crypto, probably the best security layer to rely on is Ethereum, right? And when you work with enterprises, you want to be on a blockchain which has the best security layer. So that's why we chose Ethereum. We chose to be a layer 2 because we wanted to customize certain aspect on what's being tracked on chain.
Mm-hmm.
It's not available on a generic blockchain. We can't just use a generic blockchain as it is. So we had to customize our layer 2 for that. But we decided to be on ETH because of the security and the community that is there.
Awesome. Yeah, that's good. I like to hear from ETH maxis. I like to stay agnostic in general, but definitely if I have to choose one programmable blockchain, I will be an ETH maxi for sure. So with that, like, how do you see kind of AI evolving both on the blockchain, but I guess more broadly in these next kind of 3 to 5 years, right? I think that's the $1 million question that any AI expert we get on the show, we want to kind of pick their brain. Like, where are we going from here? Are the robots taking over? Are we going to have automated cars on all the streets by next year, like Tesla seems to be promising? Where's AI more broadly going, and then specifically, what's the important role for blockchain in that evolution from your perspective as kind of an expert, as someone on the ground, building out solutions and obviously seeing kind of the cutting edge of the technology?
Yeah, so if someone says they're an expert and tell that what's going to happen in AI for the next 5, 6 years, I think they would bluff. But I don't think no one can, if they knew, they would have probably told that ChatGPT moment is going to happen, right? So it caught off guard because, it was an experiment and then it actually turned out to be something that was working. Google worked on it. It didn't really work much. And then OpenAI had better data sets to go ahead and do that. So it really comes down to like what problem you're solving and how, in fact, like how even consumers take it, right? How end consumer adapts to AI. I think that really impacts on how AI will grow as well. That has been happening for technology for a long time. That's how Facebook, Instagram, or any other e-commerce based solutions, all of that impacted, all of that grew in terms of what they are today because of how consumers perceived it and consumers use that. Very similarly, AI will be that. I think AI is bound to grow. I'm pretty sure that we all know that it's going to be used in every other sector that is there, but how that will impact in and what sector that will start off is very consumer driven. Like for example, we've automated cars, autonomous cars are like, it was bound to happen because people did not like driving from Palo Alto to San Francisco for over 1 year, 1 hour, and then not just just keep on holding a cars like this and go around, right? They just want to keep their hands free. They just probably wanted to relax a bit. They didn't want to grind and drive through traffic, and then that's why automatic gears were brought in, and that an autonomous car was a small bigger evolution of that. So it comes down to what consumers need and what's their requirement and what they adapt to. Uh, so I think the immediate impact will be on the physical AI side and also on the consumer app side. So for example, e-commerce apps, wallets, DeFi protocols, travel booking sites and stuff like that. Wherever we would like to have automation, where we don't want to scroll through and do stuff, I guess that's where AI will have big impact. And then we would start seeing in other places. I'm sure that enterprises internally within their organizations to automate they've been using machine learning, right? So using generative AI is just an evolvement for them. So I'm sure that enterprises will also start using them, and every enterprise is also doing that, and that's why we work with enterprises. So there's two different adoptions. One on the consumer side, where I think are frequently used sectors like e-commerce and all that will be exposed to AI a lot. And then there is enterprises as well.
That's amazing. Thanks for that breakdown. I think it makes sense for sure. Another use case that you have on your website is the gaming space, and we definitely like to kind of focus on that, as that's kind of what inspired my adoption of the digital space, and the crypto is really when I saw the idea that, you can now tokenize 3D digital assets that exist in video games, exist in the metaverse, whatever the case may be, and sell them to your fans, and even sell entire games and spaces on the blockchain, right? That's always been kind of a pretty inspiring, kind of exciting opportunity that I see, although it definitely has not taken off the way a lot of us back in 2021 or 22 thought that it might take off. But how do you see kind of the gaming space evolving? And, when it comes to AI and using kind of generative models in gaming, is this something that's already kind of taking off in the background that people just don't know about? And are you involved with any of those type of projects already, or how do you see that side kind of evolving?
Yeah, so I think it's a pity that Web3 gaming did not really do well, right? So I think there was a lot of scope for that, but it is what it
Still the
is.
future. We still hold out hope,
Yeah, I hope so. Yes. So I've known a couple of Web3 gaming developers who have like insane talent. I'm sure that there'll be a couple of projects that'll do really well. But on a larger sector, I think gaming is a space where, again, a lot of consumer driven activities there, right? And there is so much scope for people to play around gaming, because in terms of just non-playable characters in games to be exposed to AI and to actually have actual character using AI, or having agents play along with you, like very human-like, instead of like having bots play with you. So there is a lot of scope there. In fact, we are working with one large public gaming company where they are using AI to automate their internal development process. It's more of an internal use case, but then they will later on want to experiment around like building like agents to support the games that they built, right?
Yeah.
So it's a great sector. I think there is a lot of innovation that is bound to happen there. We are also quite excited. We would want people to build AI models that are like fine-tuned for like gaming. Let's say someone is building a model specific to a particular game, right, on how to play a game. So we'd love to see people hyper-focused on building models which are very specific. So yes, I do see that as a sector that will grow a lot, but gaming is always known to take some time to adoption because of the time it takes to build a game, and gamers and game developers are quite passionate on what they do. So, but I'm sure that it's going to have an impact as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I love the NPC side, the non-player characters, and them being a lot more lifelike, a lot more realistic with using generative models and using inference. That makes sense. Replacing actual game devs in the background, not so much a fan of. I think having that human touch on some of that creativity will be preferable to letting the robots take it over. But I won't be surprised if there's a mix of that and they start trying to look at ways to shave off certain things that are really simple and easy on the programming side to do, and let the AIs and the kind of, I guess, robots kind of take over that piece. So when looking at kind of the ethical considerations, right, around the use cases of this data and the way things are evolving, what do you see as kind of the biggest risk? And do you think that that what you're building specifically and blockchain more broadly can help address some of the risks around the ethical use of AI? You know, there's been a lot of conversation, whether it's Grok and kind of they're reprogramming and tinkering around the edges and basically trying to force Grok to answer things the way they want things to be answered, you know, and that seems pretty unethical. But other broader questions around OpenAI and other platforms as well. Do you think that blockchain is going to be kind of solving for some of the ethical concerns around data usage? And how do you see kind of that evolving?
Yeah, so I think blockchain can be used for like, it always brings in fairness, right?
Yeah.
If we take a look at it, like Bitcoin is decentralized money. Ethereum brought in decentralized finance. NFT is a more decentralized ownership or creativity. With AI, blockchain will be decentralized intelligence. How we can make sure that anyone across the globe can get access to this intelligence. That means that you need to democratize that. You need to make sure these resources are available at much more lower subsidized access. It should not be hodled by a bunch of centralized firms, right?
Right.
I'm not here to argue that centralized is good and like it's bad and like decentralized is good, but I think decentralization is needed whenever something is a public good, something where will become a public good. It'll become like a need, right? Like how electricity and internet is a need now. So in that case, you would need to make sure that you have a technology like blockchain to be implemented to bring in fairness. Not every aspect of AI needs to have blockchain implementation. It doesn't need to become decentralized, but in important aspects like this, where like data is the biggest need for AI, what if we can use blockchain to democratize that? That's what we are doing, right? We want to make sure that access to data is easy.
Nice.
What if we can bring in verifiability in places where when you use a model, whether the inference is verifiable or not, whether the right model is being used or not. So that's very important as well. So places where decentralization makes sense to bring in fairness in AI is quite important. I think that's what we're working towards. It also comes down to the team that's building for it and also the generation as well, right? The previous generation did not really care about all of this privacy and all that. They want convenience because they were exposing to technology and they got addicted to it. They needed convenience. But I think the current generation is much more exposed. They're much more open-minded. They're much more democratic. I think it comes down to the generation and the developers in the generation that are building for it as well. So at this particular moment, I think people understand the need for privacy. People understand the need for how democratization is needed in any new technology that is there, and they just don't choose convenience. They also choose ethics in which kind of product they start to use as well. There are very few parts that people are working on the AI space, which are they're decentralizing. Data is very important. Next is, I would say, compute, and then like the verifiability on inference and stuff like that. Let's try to solve one problem at a time and try to achieve something which is good. I think the centralized AI sector is far ahead, right? The traditional AI space is like far ahead in terms of the innovation and what they are. I think Web3 can add value and bring in fairness in certain elements where you can't do it in a centralized manner. And I think that's what we should concentrate on and bring in value from our side.
Add value, bring in fairness. I love it. One of the first projects that I heard kind of taking this on from an AI and blockchain perspective was Singularity Net and the AGI token in that. Are you familiar with the team there? Do you have any connections? And do you think that kind of their goal, which again, they've been talking about it, I don't know, at least 5 years now, has been around what you just mentioned with fairness, with kind of data and people actually starting to care about the ethical use of their data. So how do you see that Singularity Net project and how does it compare to kind of OpenLedger? Are they symbiosis or how do you feel about that?
So Ben is a good friend. One of the founders and Singularity is a good friend.
Ben Gertzen, it's good people.
Yeah, good people.
I met him in Toronto this year briefly. It was cool.
Nice. What they're solving is more on the, I think sort of like a marketplace problem on letting people like buy data using, crypto rails. What we are trying to do is a bit different. It's more on the fine tuning side. But yes, we definitely believe in their thesis and our thesis is very similar. bringing value using blockchain and bringing fairness is very important. A lot of people talk about it. Few of them are the ones who are implementing. I think they've been building on this over the last 5 6 years, and we've learned a lot from them. I think everyone has a piece of the pie to solve, and we are here as well. So
Nice.
yeah, so we know them pretty well. Yes.
Awesome. Very cool. Very cool. It's nice to hear that collaboration, and it's not always about competition. We like to say on the show, Web3 is about collaboration over competition and abundance over scarcity. These are two major shifts that we want to see Web3 bring in and abandon kind of the scarcity and the competition of Web2 and Web1 and kind of enter a new age. So that's what we're all about. Last thing I want to talk about, I know you got a tight schedule today, so we're going to keep it shorter.
Thank you.
Decentralized physical infrastructure, right? This is big. It does kind of speak to some of the autonomous vehicle conversation maybe, but I think that there's a lot of use case around bringing blockchain into that deep in conversation, and that was part of what we talked about with Jan from the OpenMind project and their robots there. How much are you working on that, and how much do you see this kind of deep in decentralized physical infrastructure taking off as part of the, like you say, kind of non-crypto industry stuff, whether it's cars, whether it's robots, whatever the case might be? How important is blockchain to the decentralized physical infrastructure, and are you specifically working on projects in that space right now?
Yeah, so there is a team which is building a deepen based AI model on top of us. It's called Ambios. They're basically collecting data sets related to weather, and they're building an AI model around that, right? There is so much scope there because by nature, deepen projects are decentralized. You have data coming from various parts of the world. You need to use crypto rails to reward them. And they're bound to be unbiased because it's so decentralized, right? So that's a huge place to target into, and as an industry, I think physical AI will grow a lot because a lot of automation is needed where there is always some kind of human touch where labor is being used. I think with AI, the best thing to avoid is labor, right? We don't want humans to do the labor work. Intellectually, we can be enlightened, we can do stuff, but doing labor work can be replaced by machines. So physical AI is something that I believe will be one of the biggest needs. And the data, obviously, for physical AI is restricted, right? It's not just really available. It's quite scarce and it's quite spread across, and it's among enterprises or it's among people, group of people. So deepen projects can bring that data together, right? They can bring the data from among various parts of the world, and it can have maximum amount of exposure because it's so broad and it's so spread across. And these usually deepen projects are quite packed, right? You have people from various parts, millions and millions of people participating and contributing because they know that they're going to get rewarded, and you have this large adoption with deepen projects. So I think that's a great place to start with to build AI models, to collect data and build models. So one of that initiation is what we are working with Ambios Network for, which is a deepen that is built on data sets, right? Weather data sets. I definitely believe there's a huge scope there. I don't see large implementations like autonomous cars or vision models being built initially because that requires a lot of data set, and you can't build in with a decentralized environment, right? But smaller use cases where you can collect data for unique niche data sets, I think that can be built as well. So I do see that as a sector that will grow a lot.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, it's exciting space. We've been talking about a little bit here and there, but I do think as AI takes off, it makes sense that it's going to marry the deepen evolution as well. And so I'll look into that ambiance project. That looks sounds pretty ambiance. Yeah. So what's the call to action for all of our listeners here? Anybody who maybe is developing in the AI space, whether it's already using blockchain or maybe looking at incorporating some of this fairness and other value that you kind of spoke to, looking at the OpenLedger AI Studio, and people can kind of tap in there, but what's the call to action? How can people get involved, and how can they kind of be part of this OpenLedger evolution?
Yeah, so you can check us out at OpenLedger HQ on Twitter. That's our go-to place where we update stuff, or you can check out our website, openledger.xyz. We just finished our testnet. We have 20 different projects building on us, close to about 1 million data contributors contributing data sets.
Wow.
We have 7 enterprises currently being using our product and building on us as well. We are going mainnet soon. Probably you would know about it pretty soon in our in our Twitter page. We've been talking about this for quite a while. It's been always soon, but yeah, actually, we're actually going mainnet soon.
Nice. And does that
It's been a lot
mainnet
of
come with a token then, or is it?
yeah,
Yeah.
there will be a token and it'll be announced on that about that as well.
Okay.
So we've been working hard on that, make sure that the product really works well, and every aspect of the product works. So it's an actual mainnet than what people call mainnet for. So so yeah, so check out our website and check out our Twitter, and would any support from the community, any feedback will be greatly appreciated.
Awesome, awesome. Well, you heard it here. I'm definitely, busy in the fintech space. That's what I do with my day job, and I've been hearing more and more about these AI use cases around remittances, as well as the actual security layers when it comes to finance and all of the important kind of making sure that AML processes are being followed, and all of that. So I could pick your brain for another hour, but I really appreciate your time. I'm glad that we were able to dive into OpenLedger. Everybody, check out the website at openledger.xyz. Follow them on Twitter at OpenLedgerHQ. And really grateful for your time, Ram. And we'll stay in touch, and I'll definitely be sending some developers your way, I think, because you're really on the leading edge of the AI blockchain developer conversation. So anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
It was lovely talking to you. I think I learned a lot, and I also was happy to talk about OpenLedger. It was a great time. So I'm looking forward for the launch, and would love to have you guys as support.
Awesome. We'll keep an eye out for that mainnet launch, and congratulations on everything you've achieved so far, and we'll be watching. So until next time, we'll catch you all in the metaverse. Take care, everyone. Peace out. Pew, pew.
Thank you.